küresel politikada çok kutuplu döneme girildiği Washington'da daha sık dile getiriliyor. Rekabet küresel çapta yayılırken yükselen ülkelerin etkisi de artıyor. Türkiye'nin proaktif dış politikası, hızla gelişen savunma sanayi, büyüyen ekonomisi ve herkesle görüşebilen ülke özelliği Batı'da sıklıkla dile getirilen bir gerçek. Türkiye'nin denge rolüyle küresel politikada söz sahibi ülke konumunu pekiştirdiği de analizlerde sıklıkla yer alıyor.
That we are finding ourselves in the midst of a significant international crisis period. You look at the situation that exists. You have the war in Ukraine, you have a war in Gaza, you have a war in Sudan. And it is important to understand why this is happening now. This is not just happenstance. The Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci, he defined a crisis as the moment in which the old is dying and the new is not yet born. And that responds to your point that we're moving from one international system, that one of the unipolar moment dominated by the United States, to a different one. But that new system has not yet quite emerged. So we are in the middle of this transition in which no rules apply. This situation is also marked, as you quite rightly noted, by the rise of emerging powers. Turkey is, of course, among them, India, China, Indonesia, Brazil, South Africa. And therefore, it's a wholly new configuration, and we must deal with that. What we have is more and more consolidation of the G7 group, and also, of course, of NATO, that has become more forceful in the past few years, precisely because of this crisis. And on the other hand, you have other countries in the rest of the world, mostly in the global south, that are taking a different perspective on what is happening in the world. Now, in that context, to have a country like Turkey, that is a member of NATO, to apply to join the BRICS group, which is seen by many as one of the challengers to the G7 and to NATO, obviously marks a very significant turning point. This is not something we've seen before. Turkey is also, applying to join the EU. All of this gives a new imprint to this shift that we are seeing. This had not happened before. Turkey, of course, is also a major country that is just, at the border of Europe and Asia, and therefore that has a very significant, content. What it means is essentially that the relationship between East and West and between North and South is being recalibrated and is changing in unpredictable ways. And what we are arguing is that it signals also the rise of what me and my colleagues in a recent book have called active non-alignment. That is, countries are no longer ready to simply side with East or West, but are actually saying, we will make our own choices and we will take issues one by one. And that is what I find so particularly interesting and novel in the case of Turkey these days. And what is so interesting, of course, is that this is significant not only because of Turkey's size and because of its geographic location where Europe and Asia meet, but also because of the fact that it is, has been developing in the past, 20 years or so, a very proactive foreign policy, expanding itself and its presence, its embassies and its diplomacy in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. In my appointments in Pretoria, in New Delhi, in Beijing, I was always impressed by my Turkish colleagues, by how active they were, by the resources they commanded, and by their ability to get things done. In the days of the unipolar moment, there wasn't much of a choice. Washington's was the only game in town. But that is now changing. I would say probably a turning point in this took place in 2016, when we moved towards a different type of world. And the way Turkey has been handling this is this application to join the BRICS group. It is essentially telling the West that Turkey has choices, that it doesn't depend exclusively on the goodwill of Brussels or of Washington, that there are other alternatives. And that, it seems to me, is extremely important. Rising powers today have a choice. And this is exactly what Turkey is conveying. Turkey has been applying for a long time to join the European Union. It has not had a satisfactory answer. So now it is saying, fine, I am now applying to the BRICS. What we are seeing is not this binary choice that you must choose between East and West. You either side with Washington or with Beijing or with Moscow. This is not how today's world works. In today's world, countries across the developing world, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, now have choices. And this is what the non-aligned movement in its heyday in the 50s and 60s was all about. But it has now come again in a new incarnation, what we call with my colleagues active non-alignment. And that is, you don't let yourself be pushed around by the great powers. You take each issue on its merits. You calibrate your own national interest and act accordingly. And if one of the great powers doesn't give you what you want, well, you go to the other. And that, it seems to me, increases the leverage of countries in international affairs in a way that simply aligning with one or the other doesn't. If you align yourself with one of them, well, you are stuck. If you don't, you increase your leverage. And that is exactly what Turkey is doing. Well, so there are two things here that are important to keep in mind. One of them is that, the rise of Turkey as a middle power, and also the rise of its economy. It's a big country, 87 million people. It has considerable industrial development. All of this gives it, what we in international relations refer to as, hard power. But in addition to that hard power, what I find very interesting in sort of the structure of Turkey is what we in international relations refer to as agency. That is, the capacity to display those attributes, those conditions of size, of military power, of economic magnitude in various places. I am from Chile. I've served in Africa and in Asia, and in all of those places, as I said earlier, I have seen my Turkish colleagues displaying that soft power and that agency of Turkey in very effective ways. And if we look at the number of Turkish embassies in Africa, number of Turkish embassies in Latin America and in Asia, we see how this translates into some very effective positioning in international affairs. Turkey, of course, is a NATO member. That puts it in a certain category, and the traditional view of non-alignment, if you are a part of a military alliance, almost by definition, you are aligned. And, that is the way we used to look at these matters. But what is happening in the new century is that in a more fluid international situation, being part of a military alliance doesn't necessarily mean that you are fully aligned. We see this also with India. India is a member of the Quad, with Japan, with Australia, and with the United States. And so many people thought that India would back the United States on the issue of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Well, it didn't. So something similar happens now with Turkey, in the sense that Turkey is a member of NATO. But by applying to join the BRICS group, it is signaling that that doesn't necessarily mean it is fully aligned with the West. It also has other options. And that puts it in a very privileged position, in a way, in a pole position. Well, when you become an industrial power and develop your industrial capacity, as Turkey has, obviously that entails the possibility also of developing a significant defense industry, which is, an important aspect of your economy. And in that sense, it seems to me that Turkey's development of its defense industry again strengthens its pole position in international affairs. And what I find very interesting in that regard is the very sophisticated way Turkey has handled its relationship with Russia in the case of the war in Ukraine. Traditionally, the relationship between Turkey and Russia has been a fraught relationship. It's a difficult relationship for obvious reasons. But despite the challenges entailed by the war in Ukraine, it seems to me that Turkey has played an important role, and also has played an important role as a sort of international hub in matters of diplomacy, as we have seen recently with the exchange of spies and other people that had been arrested between the United States and Russia, which took materially place in Turkey, and in which Turkey played an important intermediary role. The BRICS group has traditionally been viewed very skeptically in Washington and in many European capitals. They used to describe it merely as a talking shop that talked a good game, but didn't manage to get anything done, and therefore it shouldn't be taken very seriously. Now that is no longer the case. BRICS has expanded. It has the new development bank. It has a bank that has loaned $33 billion over the past 10 years, and it seems to me that in that sense, Turkey's applying to the BRICS group sends a very potent signal about the increasing relevance of the BRICS group. And that, of course, makes it particularly important for Washington to take Ankara more seriously. And, we saw this with Sweden's application to join NATO, in which Turkey set certain conditions to make that happen. So my point is the following. What you have to do is you increase your leverage. And that is very much what Turkey has been doing. And, I would say quite successfully. I would like to say that we are going through a very significant moment in the politics of today, international politics of today. It is a moment in which we see the rise of the global south in a way that we had not seen before, particularly in the course of the past 2 years, because of the war in Ukraine, because of the rise of the BRICS, because of the war in Gaza. All of this has propelled countries in the developing world to center stage. And in this, Turkey plays a very important role. And it seems to me that what we have seen in the past few days with Turkey's application to the BRICS group is a signal of things to come. And it is also a signal of the direction in which the world is moving, in which we have the rise of the global south, and the foreign policy that goes hand in hand with that is that of active non-alignment.